This is Design Futurecast. I'm Maria Lorena Lehman. In this 7th episode, the design experiment and result that we will investigate is called letter fibers. It is digital micrography, which is a photograph taken through a microscope and can be seen at designfuturecast.com/episode 7. I'm opening up a newspaper, and within it I'm looking at all of the words, the letters, the different paper types, because I plan to cut words and letters very small to place on a microscopic slide within a drop of water so that I can magnify upon the words and letters of the newspaper through my microscope. I've always been really fascinated by that moment when a drop of ink touches the page to continue or begin the creative process. And I'm hoping that when I magnify upon the newspaper's letters and words through my microscope, I'll have a very interesting moment where I can enjoy and appreciate this new world at a microscopic level that I think will feed the way I continue to draw and paint and apply ink to the page in the future. The results of the digital micrograph that I'm going to tell you about were extremely satisfying, eye-opening, and amazing. You see, while designing, writing, or even painting, I've always been fascinated by the point at which the ink or paint touches the paper. You see, this is a most exciting moment because it is up to the artist's performance in that instance to shape that ink or paint into best shape, letter, or figure possible. So by using the art and science of digital micrography, I soaked tiny pieces of newspaper where only fragments of words could be seen through particular letters. This was my chance to see exactly what happens when ink meets the page, to see what happens to the page, and conversely, what happens to the ink. Would the ink appear almost as if to disappear at this micro-scale close-up? Or would it become one with the page upon which it is embedded? To figure all of this out, I used my DSLR camera together with my microscope, which also included polarization lenses to pick up different light colors that would reflect from the newspaper material that I submerged in a drop of water on the microscope slide. And while it took a few tries to get the proper focusing to capture these greatly magnified printed letters, what I saw next was, as I said, really amazing and eye-opening and even greatly fulfilling. You see, the more you magnify into a newspaper's letters, the more it begins to look like the paper itself. With the paper's fibers reflecting colored light from the lens polarization technique I was using with the microscope, each of the letters printed in black ink worked their way into the layers of these fibers, so packed together. For instance, seeing part of the letter D was quite rewarding. But I had to ask, how can new creative ideas be lifted from this micro world of the printed letter? Are there implications for the world of design, for the world of writing, or even for the digital world where everything is paperless, until of course it gets printed? This led me to ask certain questions. The way the ink forms on the newspaper page reminds me of how creative ideas are born, developed, tested, and then refined to stick. Within the fabric of our world, through all its cities, cultures, and people, why is it that some ideas fade while others shine so brightly? You see, the letters from the digital micrograph images seem to lose their letterness with each magnification. In other words, the closer I focus the lens, the more the letter's ink really blended into its context. It is with distance that certain letters' boundaries and edges can be seen. So with creativity and design, it's important to dive deeply into your innovative ideas, to explore them, develop them, and refine them so they will stick once created and used. Yet I question, are there times when perspective and distance is needed to see your ideas more clearly, just as was needed with the letters as seen through the microscope? And are there times when one needs to deeply explore each nuance of an idea, to not simply see the edges, but to actually design them? So when translating these latter questions into the world of design, a letter, in this sense, could be a metaphor for a book you're writing, a building you're designing, a film you're directing, or a game you're developing. With each of these, there's a point where editing your idea can detract from the creative work. Yet, without editing, the creative work may not reach its full potential. So as you design, it's important to find that sweet spot where you create and edit only to improve the work, being careful not to over-edit. You will know if you're over-editing because you'll begin to lose the special poetic and natural greatness of the work captured in the first rendition. This means being careful not to lose the spirit of the work while editing. With the microscope, I could see the letters printed on the newspaper. I was so close to the actual ink on that paper that I felt as though I was seeing it unedited, as if I was seeing the pure essence of what makes up that letter D. Unedited, I could see that the black line of the letter D, as was visible to the naked eye, was not a pure line as it once had seemed. Instead, it was simply ink impressed on fibers of a page. And it is with distance that I could perceive what it was to become. Taking this further, the letter D becomes further edited when seeing words that contain it. For example, the first letter D in the word design suddenly applies all kinds of new meaning to the letter. So the conclusion to this experiment is that with each magnification, an editing occurs, where we can get to the spirit of the artifact being observed, in this case, a letter. But how does this all apply to your own creative and design works? Well, as we progress into the 21st century, applications emerge from such ways of thinking. It is as important to step outside of your creative work, to bring new ideas and findings back into it, as it is to be deeply submerged within your creative work, to push new ideas as you follow them and guide them in their development. But how do you do this? How do you balance the two ways of being as you create? Really, it involves trying to create within the following realm. Edit to help reach your design's potential, but do not over-edit where you lose your design's spirit. The printed newspaper micrograph photographs capture this concept very well, because even when zoomed and magnified greatly upon the letter, its spirit is there. You may not know, simply from looking at the 200-time magnified photograph, that what you are seeing is a letter D from the newspaper, but you feel its spirit, that this fibrous material is trying to tell you something through the patterns the ink creates and through color contrasts it emits within the fibers. So I invite you to take on the following challenge with your own creative work. When you must edit your creation, make sure your final resulting creation, after all the edits, feels the most unedited. Mastering this paradox will bring you significantly greater poetics for the experiencing of your design. I would like to thank you for listening to Design Futurecast And I'm especially grateful to listeners that have also been leaving reviews. In fact, this following review really caught my attention. It says, Design Futurecast is a spectacular podcast full of extremely interesting content and an approach to design that helps awaken the creative mind. I love this review because it speaks to the heart of what Design Futurecast is all about. Now I invite you to leave a review of the show to let me know what you think about it or to let me know how it's helping you. I would greatly appreciate your feedback. Simply rate and review Design Futurecast in Stitcher or iTunes. Thanks so much, and I look forward to reading your reviews. As always, for more great resources on creativity and design, please visit marialorenalehman.com.